Welcome to Standard 9B. In the standard, we're going to try and explain the emergence of an economic system called capitalism as the dominant economic pattern in the world, and the subsequent development of two other economic theories called socialism and communism. By emergence, we really mean the appearance of something new, something that appears for the first time. And by dominant, we mean the most important or powerful thing. And the word subsequent means following or coming after something. So really what we're trying to do in this standard is to explain the appearance of this economic theory called capitalism as the main or most important economic system in the world, and the following development of socialism and communism. The essential question we're trying to answer in this question, we really have two. They are, what was the role of this idea of capitalism in the Industrial Revolution, as well as this idea of market competition? And the other question we're trying to answer is, what were some other economic theories that were opposed to capitalism? And by opposed, we mean that these were theories that were against or not in favor of capitalism. So we have the two, communism and socialism, that we'll take a look at. Okay, a little bit of essential understanding to help us with this standard. The first is that capitalism and market competition really were the fuel for the Industrial Revolution. For both good and for bad, the Industrial Revolution doesn't develop the same way if it's not for capitalism. This economic theory is the basis for a lot of the things that we see happen in the Industrial Revolution, both in terms of the positives, all sorts of new things developed, a lot of reward for personal initiative, but also some of the negatives. We see things like child labor, for example. These ideas, along with market competition, the very intense cutthroat competition that capitalism kind of encourages between businesses, kept businesses and inventors constantly striving to improve and to move ahead. So both of these things, capitalism and market competition, were very important to the Industrial Revolution. It's also important to understand that capitalism as an economic system, it did increase the wealth of many individuals and improve their standard of living, but it wasn't equal across all. Not everybody enjoyed an increase in wealth and standard of living. By standard of living, we mean those comforts that make life nicer and easier. For example, in the picture, the three guys with the top hats, capitalism has made them wealthier. As a result of them being wealthier, they have a higher standard of living. They have this nice carriage that they're being transported in, much nicer than they would have had capitalism not made them wealthy. The guy running alongside the carriage with his hat out trying to beg for money, capitalism hasn't done as well for him. Capitalism is literally in the picture leaving him behind. Okay, his standard of living isn't nearly as good as the three guys in the carriage. Okay, and that's something we'll see in capitalism. Okay, the last piece of essential understanding is that the social dislocation that's associated with capitalism produced these new economic and political ideas of socialism and communism, as well as many others, but we're focusing just on those two. By social dislocation, just like if you've ever had the misfortune of dislocating a finger or really painful dislocating a shoulder, it means to move out of place. Your finger or your shoulder is no longer where it's supposed to be. Social dislocation, the same idea. People who maybe for centuries, generation after generation, were farmers. That's what they were supposed to be. Capitalism, the Industrial Revolution, forced them off the farms and into these cities where maybe they just really didn't belong. Okay, and so they didn't do very well in this new environment. We take a look at these two pictures. We see the gentlemen in the top picture, again with their top hats and nice suits. They've done very well. Capitalism and the Industrial Revolution has done good for these guys. But then we look at the picture at the bottom. Okay, these kids, maybe they're factory workers, maybe they're not even factory workers, but here they are sleeping on the streets. Again, dislocated, not where they're really supposed to be. And people who were really kind of disturbed by images of things like this, they're going to start saying maybe there's some other way besides capitalism. And that's where we're going to see socialism and communism develop. Okay, the essential knowledge that we're looking for here has to do with these three ideas of capitalism, communism, and socialism. And I think the best way for us to address these three ideas is through a Venn diagram. Okay, we'll take the circles in the Venn diagram one at a time, and then we'll bring them back together. The first circle we'll take a look at is capitalism. Okay, and the idea of capitalism is developed by a Scottish economist named Adam Smith. And in 1776, Smith wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. Okay, we see here the front page of the book. Okay, and if you want to know the main ideas of capitalism, this is the book that you want to read. In this idea, Smith spells out his ideas for the best kind of economy, and central to it is this idea of private ownership. A company like Apple, a company like McDonald's, they're not owned by the government. They're owned by individuals, either one person or a group of individuals, and they take the profits from these companies. Okay, the idea here that the person who does this, the person who takes the risk to start a business, is called an entrepreneur. Maybe some of you someday will be entrepreneurs. You've got a really great business idea, and you've got the ability and the knowledge to go out there and take that risk and start up your own business. You're then an entrepreneur. Okay, people like Bill Gates starting up Microsoft, Oprah Winfrey starting up her own production company, her own entertainment business. Okay, these are entrepreneurs. They took the risk, and in these cases they did very well. Okay, but not everybody turns out as well economically as Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey. We have people who end up homeless, they end up out of work, they end up on the streets. Capitalism is okay with a fairly large range of income distribution, of wealth distribution. Okay, we have people who are worth billions of dollars like Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates. We also have people who have basically nothing. And capitalism, in Adam Smith's view, says that's okay. It's not society's job, it's not government's job to intervene. The chips will fall where they will. Okay, and so that's the main idea really in capitalism. It allows for a very wide range. You can rise very high in capitalism. Okay, you can use your abilities to achieve untold riches. But again, if the cards go the other way and you end up not being really rich, okay, the bottom is also very low in capitalism as well. Some people were kind of disturbed by that, especially how far some people were able to fall. And so that's really where the idea of communism is developed. Communism is an idea put forth by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Okay, Marx is really the main guy. The standards want us to know Engels as well. Communism, sometimes known as Marxism. And they put forth their idea in the Communist Manifesto, okay, which was the sort of the written work of communism, and also in Marx's work, Das Kapital. Okay, so again, if you want to know about communism, these are the written works that spell out the main ideas. Communism really the opposite of capitalism. Okay, whereas In capitalism, private individuals own the businesses. In communism, Marx and Engels felt that the businesses should be owned by the government. That in order to make everybody equal, to prevent the rich from being too rich and the poor from being too poor, government needed to own the business. So in this case, back in the days of the old Soviet Union, if you went into a department store, that department store wasn't owned by a person, it was owned by the government. The money that the store made was then used to redistribute the money throughout society in an attempt to make everybody equal. Communism really minimizes personal initiative and personal ability. Okay, you might be able to make millions and millions of dollars, but communism is going to rein that back in. At the same time, communism is going to prevent the floor from falling out underneath a person also. They're not going to end up theoretically on the streets. They'll be kept equal with everybody else. Okay, so in other words, on the scales here, communism isn't comfortable with that wide range in income. Okay, so communism is going to attempt to keep everybody equal. Okay, so when we line the two sides up here, capitalism and communism, we can really see how the two ideas are opposite. Okay, we're kind of laying the groundwork for later in the course when we get to the Cold War, which was really a face-off between these two ideas. Okay, we also notice, though, that there is a middle ground in here, and that's really the area occupied by socialism. Socialism, or as it's sometimes called, mixed economies, are a mix of capitalism and communism. Okay, socialists were also kind of uneasy with how rich some people were compared to others, how wide the gap was. But at the same time, they're not trying to make everybody equal. They're allowing for some personal initiative. Typically in a socialist system, the big things, car companies, airlines, those are owned by the government. But restaurants and stores, those things tend to be owned by individuals. Okay, so there's some redistribution of wealth. There's still some inequality, but not to the same extent as capitalism. Okay, and at the same time, the equality isn't going to be the same as communism. It's going to allow for a little more inequality than communism would. Okay, and that wraps up what we need to know for Standard 9B.